everyone, it's Frankie-Lou. I'm coming to you today from the garden at the Grow To Gather Homestead, where I want to talk to you today about one of my most favorite crops. I know I say that about a lot of stuff, but I'm a huge fan of edible perennials, particularly hardy annual perennials, because we live here in Zone 3, Southern Alberta, where we can deal with some crazy conditions like extremely early frosts, extremely late frosts, hail, gale force winds. It happens and you can get almost all of that in one day. So, due to these crazy conditions that we have, I'm a real fan of any crop that will just keep producing no matter what you throw at it. Hence my love for rhubarb. And today I'm going to talk to you about walking onions. Okay, so that's what these things are right here. It's a perennial onion. Yes, it's as good as it sounds, because I planted these once 3 years ago and I don't have to plant them anymore. In fact, it plants itself. This is where the name walking onion comes from, and they're wonderful. They're one of the very first things that I get to see. I'm often harvesting from these in early March, which is unheard of for any other plant here, and then I harvest now. And I harvest in the fall. Now when I say that you get several harvests from, I'm not harvesting the same thing. In March, it starts to come up, and I'll show you a picture of that here. And those greens are absolutely delicious. They produce a nice hollow stem. I dry them and I eat them fresh, and it's so nice to be able to enjoy something that early in my garden. Here in Zone 3, I often don't get to enjoy anything else for quite a while. Then summer comes on and they start to grow these very, very long stalks. These plants, as you can see, they're pretty darn tall here, and some of them are very, very large. And what they do, pop one off, is they grow these bulbs at the top. Okay, so this is a nice, pretty average bulb set that you're going to get off of the top of your walking onion this time of the year. Smells like onion, tastes like onion. In fact, I compare these a lot to more like shallots, okay? But they're delicious. I use them several ways, these little top sets. I break them up, I peel off one layer, and I'll often throw them in with my new potatoes. I'll eat them with roasted potatoes. And this year, I've got enough of them now that I'm actually going to probably do some pickling with them as well. So that is one way that you can eat these onions as well. You can also dig up them, and we'll go in there in a minute to show you that, because these ones are nice and mild flavor. The onion bulb that grows below ground, not as mild, a little bit stronger, and honestly I usually don't dig those up because it is a perennial plant. If you do dig that bulb up and eat it, that plant isn't going to produce a top set the next year. And although I will say they expand two ways. Walking onion, you may have heard of them before also being referred to Egyptian onions, perennial onions, tree onions, and honestly I think they should be called friendship onions because it's such a wonderful gift. I could give this to a friend like I received a few years ago. I got a few bulbs like this, popped them in the ground, and now I have this gift that keeps giving from my garden. If you have a neighbor who has these growing, I'm sure if you talk nicely to them, they will be happy to share you one of these bulbs, and then you can start this wonderful adventure with these onions as well. These things grow from everywhere from Zone 3 to Zone 10. Right? Isn't that awesome? If you are lucky enough to be given one of these clumps, you could break it up and plant each of these plants separately. And I have done that, but I find that they work way more successfully when you let them do what they do naturally and you plant as a clump. Okay, I've just found that the plants seem to be thriving a lot more when they grow as a group. And what will happen naturally if you want to spread an area, I grow mine in a raised bed. This is a large raised bed, it's 4 by 10. I usually don't stick with this size except for my perennials because they need so little care. Honestly, all I do is I top dress them with compost twice a year, once in spring and once in fall. I probably have to water this about a third as much as I water my vegetable garden. They do like dry conditions. Well, here in southern Alberta, that's a good thing. But I've also seen them grow when it's raining and raining and raining. Like I said, it's a wonderful plant. It'll pretty much take a licking and keep on ticking. So what will happen if I leave these is they're starting to look a little ratty now. This is probably the ugliest they look is right now, this time of the year. And I'll show you what they do and how they work. And I will also show you what happens if you do want to, what the onions look like if you do want to dig them up from below. So here we go, into the garden. Okay, as you can see here, these aren't the prettiest looking plants this time of the year. They do look great the rest of the year, but what's happening here is how they reproduce. See, this is getting kind of heavy, this stem, this nice hollow stem that they grow on, and eventually it's going to drop right down and this bulb will land in the soil. And that's how they reproduce. You don't have to let it happen. I've got this dense enough that I'm not going to let it happen again. You can pick this off and eat it yourself, but that is how the plant does its thing. Now, if we wanted to here, we can also dig up. I'm going to take from one of my larger older clumps, because honestly, if you do have a large older clump, need to do a little weeding in here, it does benefit from being split every third year, I would say approximately. Let's get in here and see if I can show you what the onion underneath looks like. Okay, so it's not a huge bulb, as you can see, but it is powerful. Okay, this is a little bit more stronger flavored than your standard onion, probably because it has been developing over, like this is about a 3-year-old plant. So this has been developing for quite some time, and it does have a stronger flavor. The walking onion does spread itself in 2 ways. It expands from its root base here, and it also does the old dropping down of the bulb onto fresh ground. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. It is kind of mind-boggling for some people to consider that there is a perennial onion, and it's something that's really delicious that can be eaten and enjoyed. And once you start growing them and you know how to use them, I'm sure you're going to love them in your garden. So maybe do poke around, see if any of your neighbors have these growing, because I'm sure you won't regret it. A lot of people grow them as ornamentals because they are kind of interesting. But as I said, you can also eat them. There's the lower bulb, not the biggest thing, but very powerful, and these lovely top sets. So there you go. That's my little ramble about perennial walking onions. Please ask me questions about them, because I could talk about them a lot longer if you wanted me to, because I do really, really love them. And or if there's other things going on in the garden you want to know about, going to be doing one on horseradish soon, because man, did that ever take off this year. So we'll be doing a horseradish one. It's a wonderful perennial if you happen to live with harsh conditions like I do, and I hope you'll give it a try. Please don't hesitate to ask questions, subscribe if you want to see what's going on, and as always, I hope you'll take this chance to grow together today. Have a good one.